Welcome everyone to a Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And do Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM KPPP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Welcome everyone to a Mexican Crossing Lines with Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And do Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM KPPP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. And tonight on my show, I'm going to be talking about testing, COVID testing, and specifically the problems. My show is titled Testing Trouble, because I think as long as we don't have adequate testing, fast testing, multiple types of testing, and more specifically now, the kind that can tell you whether you've already had it, we're not going to really be at the place where we can safely send people back into the world, into the jobs, into the factories, and not be causing harm. And there's been a lot of conversation around when it's safe for people to go back to work. And I think it's a conversation worth having, especially because the president is signaling that he's going to be reopening the economy. Different states' governors are now signaling they are going to be reopening their states. North Dakota is one of those states. And I think regardless of whether or not your state governor or the president tells folks in America that it's safe to go back out and go to work, what America really needs is to know that they're safe, to know that they're able to go back to work in a safe environment. Say, just in a factory where you would like everyone in your job site tested to make sure you know who's had it, who doesn't have it, who's never had it, and then, be able to track every day temperatures and symptoms. And we're not there yet, folks. We're not there yet. So today I'm going to talk about everything surrounding testing up to the minute that we know right now. And in addition to that, I'm going to talk about my personal take, my personal opinion. And Duke, of course, you can chime in. You can share yours too.
All right.
But I'm going to tell you from my personal perspective why I think that it would be prudent for state governments like North Dakota's, like South Dakota's, like some other states that are proposing to go back to work, to send people back to work. And even in places like Mexico, where just today in the morning press conference, the Secretary of Health stated that in about a month, they're planning on reopening the whole country.
Really?
Well, not necessarily the whole country, but they've said that there are no known cases in 800 plus municipalities across the country. And so in those municipalities where they have no reports yet, they're planning to return to work. And why I believe that is such a mistake. Let me start off by saying that something that I don't hear said enough, that I don't hear people talk about enough, is what the raw numbers that we're seeing right now really represent. Because it wasn't that long ago that they rolled out testing, and it was kind of a bumpy start, okay? And the testing that became available first took weeks sometimes to get results back. So when we're looking at the numbers today, we're actually looking at our past. We're not looking at the last 24, 48 hours in terms of the results. Those tests that we're getting that are saying they're positive, they're from a week ago or even longer. We're looking at the past. We don't actually know what our present looks like because we don't have adequate testing. So from that perspective, starting from the idea that the information that we're looking at right now is actually from the past. It's not from our present. It's not actualized up to the minute. There are tests rolling out, and I will bring announcements about those kinds of tests that are going to be coming out, that you can get a result back in as early as 13 or 14 minutes. Not the same as the tests that we've been using in the past. The availability of the faster tests, of the tests, the serology tests that will show whether you have antibodies or not, and of the testing that is being done with plasma that can check to see whether or not your particular blood has enough antibodies in it to help treat people that are sick or immunize people from getting sick, all of which are happening right now. And in terms of going back to some kind of economic life in this country, we have to talk in terms of cost-benefit ratios. And what we're really weighing is how much death are we able and willing to accept in exchange for going back to work. And I've heard a lot of people, there's no judgment in what I am saying right now. I've heard a lot of people saying that leaving people without a means of making money, destroying so many businesses, large and small, in the process of quarantining, and how that's going to affect people emotionally and mentally. There are suicides being reported in the midst of this pandemic. I hear you. I get it. I am listening to the world. I'm listening to our country, and I get that people, especially people that are living paycheck to paycheck and day to day, they need a way to survive. But at what cost? And how much? What does that look like? I really want to hear from my audience. I want to hear from the folks out there. I want to thank all of you who've been sending me the tough questions, the links, your support for our station, for the family that runs this station, and your financial support to keep us on the air. Duke, how can folks contact us and tell us what they think?
Well, I really appreciate that people are helping us. We're learning together. We're in this together. We're learning together. We're producing this together. And thank you very much for participating. Thank you for watching. Please share. Please share. We're multi-streaming on our Facebook platform and our YouTube platform. We're at Duke 1517 on YouTube. And on Facebook, we're at 88.1 FM Fargo Moorhead. And also you can call us, leave a message if you'd like to on our message line, 701-566-0917. Again, it's 701-566-0917. If you want to send us an email, you can send Cindy an email at cindy@kpppfm.com or send me, Duke, at kpppfm.com. That's my email. You can tweet us at media_PPP. And our website for our radio station is kpppfm.com. If you'd like to look around there, see the programming we're having, we're broadcasting on the air in Fargo Moorhead right now. If you're driving on your car or if you have a radio at home, please get a radio. Please find a way to listen to your local radio stations. You're going to get the news faster. You're going to get accurate information, quick information, right from people that are living around you, and that's a great way to get the information. Go to kpppfm.com and make a donation to our nonprofit organization that sponsors the station. Go to kpppfm.com/donate. It's tax deductible. It would help us a lot, help keep us on the air, help us keep us going forward with you together.
And today I want to start off by looking at our numbers in the world. Here is the map from the Johns Hopkins University. We're over 2 million now worldwide total confirmed cases. As it stands at this very moment, we have 2,152,647 cases, 143,000 deaths worldwide, 143,802 to be exact. And total tests in the U.S. are at 3,401,064.
Oh,
Again, percentage out of the full population of the U.S.,
oh yeah.
that's still pretty small.
It is.
In comparison. We have hundreds of millions of people living
Yes.
in the U.S.
Mhm.
So this does not represent but a fraction, a very small fraction of our population. And we are now over 600,000 cases in the U.S. right now. At this very moment, we are looking at worldmeter.info to gather this information, and we are at 677,056 cases, 34,580 deaths, 57,271 people recovered. In New York, there are 226,198 cases. That's 7,636 new cases and 606 new deaths. New Jersey is at 75,317. Massachusetts is at 32,181. Michigan is at 29,263. Pennsylvania is at 27,735. I mean, each of these states I've just been reading to you
Yeah.
have, Pennsylvania only had 58 cases. California has 85 new deaths. Pennsylvania, 58 new deaths. Illinois, 124 new deaths. Michigan, 172 new deaths. Massachusetts, 137 new deaths. New York had 606 new deaths.
Wow.
New Jersey, 362 new deaths. To me, the biggest fear is that we go back to some semblance of normalcy of sending people back to work too early, and we end up being a little mini version of New York in our home states, even with not largely populated states such as North Dakota, Iowa, South Dakota. So what are we doing here in Minnesota? How are we doing?
Yeah. Well, it's the numbers go up every day. The positive tests in Minnesota is up to 1,912. There's been 94 deaths in Minnesota. The current positive cases are 892, and hospitalized 213, recovered 1,020. Now, if we come over to our county here, the Clay County, the county we live in, we're up to 43 confirmed cases, and there's been one death.
Just in our county.
Just in our county. We're actually a small county. We're a small part of Minnesota. So it's one reason is because we're next to Fargo, the Fargo people. In North Dakota, we have, positive. There's 28 new positives in the past day. There's 393 cases that are positive.
Wow.
45 of those people are hospitalized. That's one more person from yesterday. 163 recovered. There's been 9 deaths. There wasn't a death in the past day. But if you look over here to the Cass County cases, out of those 28 individuals,
whoa, all of them are.
Almost all are from Cass County and Grand Forks County.
Are there any that aren't?
Oh, no,
I don't see any.
Well, there's other ones. I just don't have them on the screen. But Grand Forks County and Fargo and Grand Forks are really getting a lot more. And if you look at people are in their 30s
and 40s
and 20s and 60s, and also from 0 to 9, a child, and 20s, very much young people, and most
20s and 30s,
most are
30s and
from
40s.
Close contact, household contact,
Household
community
contact. I hadn't seen that one.
Yeah, it's like someone in your house has it, and you had contact with them, and you end up contracting the virus. Now, with the nursing homes, I want to talk about that.
That's household contact because you're inside the same building.
Yep, nursing homes. What we're having is we have 9th FM area long-term care facility reports COVID-19 case. Now the nursing homes, I've been following
That's just
this.
that's nine facilities in the Fargo-Moorhead region.
Yes. Yep. And that's
That's a lot.
yep. And what's happening is that the nursing homes are starting, and one reason why is because if you look at the definition and what they've put out is that the State Department of Health officials say that the way they track this is that you have a positive in the nursing home if it's a resident, a staffer, a contractor. So if a person comes in, say their food service or someone coming in from the other hospitals, or a healthcare professional, and they test positive, it counts as a positive in your facility, and they're tracking basically all the facilities that have more than 10 people in them. And the other thing is that this is important because Eventide, which is one of the largest nursing homes in our community, doesn't want to be on that list, even though they have had a healthcare worker come in and test positive as soon as they left, or within the week after they got tested, they came up positive, and that was the last place they're at. So they're in the database for having a positive. And what they're putting out there, some of these nursing homes are fumigating. They're putting people in really, really good isolation. Eventide's been doing a campaign, and today's is that their everyday hero is one of the staff people standing in front of, superheroes. And this is a sort of, basically, I consider it, and this is my opinion, I consider it as they're shying away from dealing with the real problem. They're not. They have a COVID plan that they developed early in March. It's inadequate in my opinion, and I don't think they're doing a very good job. And for them to spend time just promoting themselves and trying to make people feel a sense of false hope, I think they need to buckle down and do things better in this community.
Look, I think that after this whole thing passes, we're going to look back at this and we're going to reevaluate how this business is run and how things are done. Personally, I believe that they're doing the best they can with the business model that they have.
All right.
And I'm going to say that because the business model that they have is that they have a lot of, let's face it, medium to low wage workers. In order to do right by these facilities, all of these facilities, not just in our state, every single assisted living or nursing home in the country, you would have to quarantine off those buildings. You just have to. People going in and out leads to household contagion, like you saw.
Yeah.
It's almost inevitable if you're in the same house and you're not in a separate building and you're not in separate, quarters completely, where the air intake and all of that is separate. You have separate bathrooms, the whole nine. Then the likelihood that you're going to, over a period of time, being next to someone that is positive with COVID in the same building, I get so excited. In the same building, you're going to end up contracting it. So, how do you avoid that? The only way that you avoid that is quarantining. That's the only way.
Yeah, and if they could have live-in staff, they're not equipped to have someone spend the next 3-4 months, live 5 months, 6 months living there and not leaving the place, and having people that would also live there and take a shift off, shift on, shift off, and have an apartment there and never leave. Have people that would stock everything from the outside but never enter the facilities, and have staff that are doing the cooking that live there. They're not equipped for that. Also, they don't have enough money. They're a big organization, but they would go broke basically paying people what they really need to pay them to be able to do that. Right now, a lot of them are hiring because people are quitting. People are leaving. People don't want to be there. They're trying to hire people to bring them in, and they're offering them like $5 extra an hour when they're sleeping there if they do overnights. But they have to do a lot more than that. And they're really, like you said, their business structure is not structured for them to deal with a pandemic.
Of course. And here's the thing. We have to be able to pivot and shift into pandemic mode if pandemic mode is what is going to save your residents.
Yeah.
And so the thing about this pandemic is that it's going to teach us a lot of things. So I mean, I want to give this nursing home and all the nursing homes out there wide berth, the benefit of the doubt. They're caring for some of our most vulnerable population, and their employees and their facilities deserve our support and our understanding. But really, there is no way to avoid contagion if you're going to be in the same facility and there's going to be somebody, that has COVID in there. Once the COVID gets into these nursing homes, it's going to be a bleak situation, folks. I mean, and we're seeing that in households, in smaller microcosms. In fact, I'm going to play a clip for you that kind of updates you on the situation with Chris Cuomo. Chris Cuomo, who is a CNN reporter and also the brother of Governor Andrew Cuomo, revealed today that he's been in quarantine in his basement for weeks now, but one of the things he was most afraid of was having given this to his wife or kids, and his wife has now tested positive. So let's listen to this clip.
My own struggles, they're common. And now we have another common aspect of this that, as you know well, and you've been telling me all day, families all across the state and the country are experiencing. It's very rare for a family to be one and done. Christina now has COVID. She is now positive. And it just breaks my heart. It is the one thing I was hoping wouldn't happen, and now it has.
Yeah, well, look, it's something we talked about, right, when this first started. It's very hard for a person to quarantine in a home and other people not to get infected. That's why we talked about people who quarantine in hotels. They quarantine in a hotel room. The food for 14 days, the food that comes in, they don't even take the plates out for 14 days. I mean, you want to talk about intense quarantine, right? But to do it in a home where a person's bringing you dishes, bringing you food, even if they're wearing a mask and gloves, that virus can live on some surfaces up to 2 days.
And even longer.
Yeah.
We've seen in the I can't remember what line of boats or
One of the cruise lines.
ships. It was one of these cruisers that I don't even remember how many days after, something like 17 days after
17
everybody
days,
had
yeah.
left, there was still live virus on any number of surfaces inside of that cruiser. So really, if you have someone that is quarantined because they have symptoms, because they are suspected of having COVID, if you don't want to end up having everyone else in your family catching this virus, they probably shouldn't be in the same building. And this is going to put a huge, most people in America can't afford to take one of their family members and put them up in the hotel during a pandemic, no less, for weeks at a time, just to avoid the contagion of the rest of the family. But here's the tricky part. If that person cannot quarantine outside of the family, then you risk getting everyone else sick, almost certainly getting this virus. And how many of those people can adequately fight it and be on the the winning side of that battle? I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question, and especially in densely populated cities where housing is even more of an issue. People are really struggling, but the issue of testing and being able to test people is one that I think is going to continue to elude us in terms of giving us a clear picture of really where we are. I really hesitate to endorse sending people back to work, sending people back to the regular routine of going out to bars and going to the movies and going shopping or going to any kind of sporting events. And some people have said that, we probably, like the state of California, Governor Newsom said, we're probably not going to do any of that until 2021. It's not going to
Wow.
happen. Just forget about it. But not everyone is on that page. Not everyone thinks that we need to continue social distancing or shutting down, sheltering in place. So, in order to begin to make those kinds of decisions, I think we need to have a clear picture of how much this contagion has spread, how many people are actually today, not a week ago, not 2 weeks ago, sick and testing positive, but today, right now, because that number could have already doubled or more, and we don't even know. And to that end, I wanted to read to you a post that was shared on social media right here in our community, right here in the Fargo-Moorhead metro area. I'm not going to mention the name of this mother of young children, I should say. I'm not really sure how many she has. But I will say that I want to keep her name anonymous because I want to protect her and her family. But this is not fake news. This is not propaganda. This is her post to let people know what she's scared of in terms of this community knowing the true scope of the pandemic in our midst. This is what she said. I'll call her Jenny, okay? Jenny posted yesterday. I had no intention of sharing my situation to the world like this, but after reading this article today, I feel like this needs to be said. I have never had a bad experience with Sanford. Sanford is the name of a local hospital.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of hospitals in the state of North Dakota. And Minnesota too, right?
Yep.
She's never had a problem, she said, and have used them for everything since I moved to Fargo over 8 years ago. But I had some symptoms of COVID-19 over the weekend and I wanted to be tested, mainly for my own peace of mind and to know if I needed to quarantine away from my kiddos, which I didn't want to do unnecessarily. Naturally, I turned to Sanford and did an e-visit, filled out the questionnaire, and received a generic message within a half an hour, stating that I did not qualify for testing because I did not identify close contact to a laboratory confirmed case of COVID-19 within 14 days of my symptom onset. Even after I pushed back on the logic of that statement, I got another response indicating I could not be tested. I had a gut feeling that things just weren't right. Not to mention scary symptoms that included difficulty breathing. So I didn't stop and I initiated contact with the other hospital in town. After a video visit and much more extensive questioning, the doctor ordered a test to be done at a drive-through facility. Yesterday, my test results came back positive, and I am now tracking with a nurse from public health on a daily basis who said that my experience is not uncommon. And she praised me for advocating for myself and not giving up. I truly fear that this is why our state has such low numbers. Not because we have few cases, but because we simply are not testing. If the largest health organization doesn't test until someone can confirm contact with a confirmed positive case, we are obviously not going to have valid testing results. I know we're really proud of our low numbers, but probably we shouldn't be. We've got a false sense of security with this that you could put more people at risk. Please take this seriously and don't believe everything you read. Stay home and trust your gut. What do you think about that, dude?
Well, we've been talking about this, and it makes a lot of sense because you aren't you're not broad testing everybody in the community, and it seems like the more tests that go out, the more positives that come back. And the idea that I remember reading that in order to get the test from Sanford, you had to have that, and I thought, well, that's going to make it so a bunch of people won't get tested, they can't get tested. And remember, many times you'll test negative even though you are positive. A second test you'll test positive. So there's so many things that we haven't explored, and for us to go put everybody back at work and try to roll out this, put everything back the way it was, without a way to guarantee that you're not walking into a work situation that there's people that are positive there and you're going to catch it. That's got to be guaranteed for people to go back to work, and keep those people from spreading it to the rest of the public. The only way that can happen is if there's strong testing that's accurate, and that is continually testing and certifying people that they're ready to go be with other people. And without that, we just can't do this. We do have to stay home.
Listen, if they can't do it at a local level, at a hospital medical facility level, like big provider like Sanford, and they can't do it at a state level, can we agree to at least have individual businesses who might be able to pay for private testing to be able to test everyone in their facility to make sure, and then to have all of these extra checks per day to check the temperature of people, to make people like that are going back to work download one of those apps that tracks where they're coming and going, so we can figure out whether the last place that they were when they showed symptoms, if they show symptoms of COVID, can be notified.
Yeah.
Where we can tell people, if you were just at Hornbacher's, there's a guy that just collapsed in there and he's got the COVID, right?
Yep.
We want to be able to notify people. At the very least, if we're going to go ahead and send people back into the world full of pandemic, I think we owe them that. We owe them enough information so that they can protect their own. Let me go to some of the comments, Duke.
All right.
Sherry A. comments, yes, I agree, but many need a means to survive. I hear you. I totally hear you. Nobody has heard more from people that they can't survive without going to work than Mexicans. Because every time I have brought up what I consider to be irresponsible behavior, and remember, as a Mexican crossing lines, looking over the border at my fellow Mexicans in Mexico, not wearing face masks, not social distancing properly, not having any directive from their president to take this more seriously. It sounds pretty harsh when I say to those folks, don't they care about their kids' lives? Don't they want to protect their elderly? And the pushback I got, and every time I've talked about this with other fellow Mexicans in Mexico, I get the same pushback. Hey, they said, these people need to work to survive. You have to understand, they don't have a choice about this. And, that's where we have to have those difficult making decisions, those difficult conversations. Sherry also said that she believes that we are having to put a lot of trust in our governors to know when they've done enough testing. Yes. People also need to look hard at their own personal safety. Yes, personal responsibility is key in all of this, as well as those with whom they live. Yes, amen, 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 amen. Sherry. Patriotic Vegan comments, I hope states allow people in cities to have victory gardens in their front yards and their apartment patios. Here. I would love that. Let's have folks find out if your local municipality is allowing that. Contact your local mayor, your town leaders, and find out, hey, are we going to be allowed to have victory gardens in our front yard or our backyard or wherever the sun shines in our yard, if we have one, if not on our patios, because we may need to grow some food for ourselves? That is a great question that we should all be trying to find the answers to. Shar Dunk says, hey, I'm telling you, China is bracing for second wave of COVID-19 right now. I've seen indicators of that too. I think that's also going to happen, and not just in China. I think it's going to happen in other countries because we're all kind of following China's lead. Have you noticed that?
Mm-hmm.
Despite the fact that we know that they're not giving us the right numbers, despite the fact that we know that they dragged their feet in telling us in the first place, despite the fact that we know that they are hiding deaths, and now we have intelligence, as our president notified us, that our intelligence community is looking into still, about whether or not China was irresponsible and indebted now to the entire world for the way in which this virus may have been released into the world by a local laboratory. That is all being looked at right now. In fact, I have been looking at this for a while. I received videos that indicated that that was the case, but I was hesitant to talk about them until our president, our intelligence community, and our government acknowledged it publicly, as they now have. Although the president has said he's not going to talk about details, I am going to bring you an interview this Saturday, this weekend, both in Spanish and in English, from a Chinese man who is not in China and who has been spilling beans about what the communist government in China has done with regard to this virus and why he does not trust anything coming out of the Communist Party government in terms of what we can expect. So it's going to be a very, very interesting show. I hope that you guys can catch it because I think it will shed light on a lot of questions that people have about what happened from a Chinese man. Okay? It's about time that we listen to somebody that fled that country to shed the light. And he is hiding because his life has been threatened for speaking out. So it'll be very interesting to hear what he has to say. Patriotic Vegan says, per federal government, plenty of tests are available of the longer tests, the one that takes a week or longer, but private labs haven't hired the people to run these machines yet. I heard Dr. Birx mention it today in the news briefing. Okay. So we've heard a lot about, and Dr. Birx also talked about how we want to be able to roll out, especially the new tests that test faster, so we can give employers a way to bring back their workforce more safely. Not completely safely, because if you leave your home during a pandemic, there's bound to be an uptick in contagion. That will be especially true if we reopen schools.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, especially true. However, there's a lot of people out there that are on their last nerve with homeschooling. So, again, I guess we're going to have to weigh how much we are willing to have, how many people we're willing to allow to die in this scenario where we reopen the government. Let's look at the COVID tracking project. You can go to covidtracking.com and take a look. According to Politico, using data from the COVID tracking project, Politico is tracking or following how each state is doing in responding to COVID. The data isn't perfect, and since the CDC hasn't begun publicly releasing the numbers of people who have been tested, this COVID tracking project is pulling data from state health departments, which can vary in the way that they report tests and infections from state to state. But again, since the CDC is not releasing data, this tracking project can help you get a better idea of how different states are reporting their numbers of tests, people tested, the numbers of people positive, their numbers of negatives, whether they're reporting on negatives or partially reporting on negatives, whether they're reporting the reports that come out of the hospitals only or private labs too. Like all of that is on this website. And so I tried it out. I'm like, okay, let's see how this works. So I typed in North Dakota, and this is what came up. It says that we have 356 positive,
365 positive.
10,952 cases of tests that are done. It says that pending is not applicable. I don't know how that's possible. Currently, there's 13 people hospitalized cumulatively. There have been 44. For how many people there are in ICU at this moment, we have 0 numbers to report on that. Or on ventilators, again, no data on that. It's not that there isn't any in the state. We just don't have the data. It's not being reported to this site. Number of recovered people is 142, and 9 is the number of deaths out of a total test results, not tests, just the results, of 11,317. And then underneath these totals, it says where you can go and see the North Dakota Health Department Twitter page, which is one of the sources that they got their information from. And at the very top, on the right-hand side, it tells you what the grade for the test was. And North Dakota got a B. And I was like, wow, North Dakota got a B? And it says also at the bottom in the notes here that as of March 30th, numbers reflect both public and private lab results. So for North Dakota, the numbers that you see of positives reflect both the public and the private testing. And we got a B. So then I started thinking, if North Dakota got a B, and we are one of the states that, we don't have people getting tested unless they fit this certain criteria, as this woman who recently fought to get a test and finally proved she had COVID found out, then how are people grading other states? And do we have bad states at all? And I found that every state in the country has an A or B rating, every single one of them, except for Washington for some reason. Washington has a C. Washington is the only state in the country. Well, this includes all U.S. territories like Guam and Puerto Rico, okay? It includes every part of the United States on the globe. And Washington is the only one with a C grading. And the reason for that can be seen in the notes, because it says that as of March 31st, Washington reporting has been a little sporadic. Washington reports confirmed cases, laboratory tests, and deaths as of the previous day. So they're not even telling you day to day. Currently, new negative test results are not being reported. And the historical data is updated regularly, and CTP data may be updated to match when possible. So basically, spotty results, spotty testing.
Yeah.
All of these things are testing problems, testing troubles that we have in America that make it difficult to understand the full scope. And this is why this matters, folks. Let me explain to you how the grading is done. Take a look at what the criteria is so you can understand. So you get a +1 for reporting positive cases of COVID reliably. You get a +1 rating for your state for reporting negatives some of the time, not even all the time. Now, if you report them negatives reliably, you get another +1 for your state. And if you report all testing, reporting of all commercial tests, you get another +1 for a total of a perfect 4, and that would be an A grade, right?
Yep.
So that's the criteria. That's the actual criteria. And it says at the bottom there, if you're calculating positive rates, it should It should only be with states that have an A grade. And be careful going back in time because almost all the states have changed their levels of reporting at different times. This is not a grade for the testing effort itself, but rather for the comprehensiveness and regularity of each state's reporting. Okay? So, why does this matter? Let me read from their website what it says. The COVID tracking project exists because every person, every newsroom, every government agency in the U.S. deserves access to the most complete picture of testing for COVID, the data that can be assembled. Minimal testing and inadequate reporting. In the early stages of COVID-19, some wealthy countries pursued a strategy of widespread testing that allowed them to successfully pursue a containment strategy. Others, including the U.S., have been much, much slower to implement mass testing. We're still not there. As has been extensively documented elsewhere, the U.S. testing effort started late, rolled out slowly and unevenly, and has yet to scale widely in most parts of the country. In addition, this failure to test early or scale up quickly, central authorities have elected not to publish complete testing data. The CDC publishes a case count, which tracks identified cases of COVID-19 confirmed through testing, though it significantly lags behind other sources of this data, like the Johns Hopkins University tracker, which has been the gold standard for U.S. case count throughout the outbreak. And although the CDC does offer a national level account of specimens tested, this data is incomplete and lagging, and it uses a different unit, specimens, for total tests than for positive results, which are counted in people. This makes it impossible to accurately match testing totals with positive tests to infer a complete picture of COVID-19 testing, even at the national level. And counts alone don't tell a complete story. The problem with relying on case counts is that a simple count of identified COVID-19 cases doesn't show the true location or comparative severity of outbreaks. Simple case counts show where people are being tested, not where people are sick. To illustrate this point, a state that reports 3 cases of COVID-19 after testing 2,000 people is probably in a very different stage of its outbreak than a state that reports 3 cases but has only tested 20 people in the state. But if all you have is case counts, those states look exactly the same. Understanding the shape, the speed, and the location of regional outbreaks requires the entire testing picture. How many people have actually been tested in each state or territory? When were they tested? And what their results were. That's where our data comes from. Because we have no complete official account of COVID-19 testing data in the U.S., we have to get this data from public health authorities in each U.S. state and territory and the District of Columbia. Each of these authorities reports its data in its own way, including online dashboards, data tablets, PDFs, press conferences, tweets, and Facebook posts. And while many states and territories have slowly moved toward more standard ways of reporting, the actual categories of information are still in flux. Our data team uses website scrapers and trackers to alert us to the changes, but the actual updates to our database are done manually by careful humans who double check each change and extensively annotate changes of areas that have ambiguity. So, folks, this is why we don't have a complete picture. And even the people that are trying to track our numbers nationally and by state can't give us a clear picture. But there is hope. Abbott is now rolling out a new coronavirus test, antibody test, that would or could do up to 20 million screenings in June. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Because antibody testing is an important next step to tell if somebody has already previously been infected. It will provide more understanding of the virus, including how long antibodies stay in the body and if they provide immunity, said the company. Abbott's 2 other coronavirus tests, which only recently were introduced, determined whether a person had COVID-19 now. One of those tests can tell in 13 minutes or less if a person at a testing site is currently infected, while the other tests are performed in labs. The new antibody test announced just this Wednesday will reveal if a person also has been infected in the past, even if they are no longer sick. Infectious disease experts have said that such antibody screenings, also called serological tests, will be needed to track the spread of the coronavirus in the U.S. and elsewhere and to develop containment strategies. This is the type of test we need to develop a strategy of containment so that people can safely return to their jobs. That's why I don't think we're really there yet, in my humble opinion, in a lot of places in our country, because we simply don't have the ability to test and to do so quickly, and to do so not just for whether or not you have the virus now, but whether or not you already had it and whether or not the antibodies make you immune. That is question number 3. It's the $1 million question, really, folks. And Abbott Labs is developing a new test for mass screening as the U.S. tries to reopen the economy. So this is the plan. Abbott Laboratories has launched a coronavirus test in the U.S. so far, and this is the 4th one they're working on. They've already released 3. I just told you the 3rd one. And this one has an on-site diagnostic kit that can deliver results within minutes and antibody tests that show if someone was infected in the past. Abbott is working on a 4th diagnostic test for the coronavirus, a lateral flow blood test that could provide mass testing to the general population. Now, why is that so important? Well, Ford, who is a representative for Abbott Laboratories, has said that the company is also working on this lateral flow blood test, which can provide a diagnosis even more quickly than the tests they have already put out on the market. Quote, "This will allow us to scale up the numbers much more significantly," he said. "This falls in our ability to look at mass testing for the general population. They are on time now, and they are almost there." That means they're not done, folks. He said Abbott sees its coronavirus test kits as additional layers of security as companies across the U.S. seek to bring their employees back to work. Quote, "We know we're going to be working a little bit different than we've been historically working. I think that we'll see people wearing masks. I think that we'll see more cleaning of doorknobs and elevator buttons," he said. "Running these tests on top of what you are doing will provide another tool to assist schools and companies to get people back to work." And finally, one of the most important things that they can roll out is to test the people's blood. And they're already doing trials to put this, antibody-rich serum into the sick people to help them get better. These tests are, showing very positive effects so far. They have a further to go. And before I share with you a Wall Street Journal video about just how this works and why it's so important to get us to the phase where we are putting people back to work and able to save those who get COVID with this kind of a treatment, I want to Remind folks that you are listening to A Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM, KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. And here, for you all to enjoy, is a Wall Street Journal video about serum testing and about how we can get antibodies to help sick people.
Many months, if not years away, scientists and doctors are racing to treat the disease it causes. They have identified antibody testing and blood plasma therapeutics as promising approaches to mitigating the health and economic-related fallout from the pandemic. These technologies could also help us learn more about how widely the virus is spread.
It's based on the same principle of if you have a protective antibody, passive transfer of that could provide not only protection prophylactically, but also treatment.
When patients recover from a viral infection, they produce virus-fighting proteins known as antibodies. These circulate in a person's blood and help protect against future infections. Antibodies are particular to the invader they're produced to fight off. If they're found in the blood, that means the person was infected and that they now have the molecular defenses to fight that virus off, a process known as immunity. In theory, doctors could transfer these antibodies to a person who is still sick, so these proteins could help them recover. This kind of therapy has been tried in the past during previous public health crises.
It was used in the 1918 flu epidemic. It was used in many outbreaks of mumps, polio, and measles in the early 20th century, and it continues to be used as recently as the SARS epidemic of 2003.
The treatment, known as convalescent plasma therapy, is gaining traction now because there aren't other approved alternatives for treating COVID-19.
The word stopgap is often associated with it, and the reason is it is available today.
The safety and efficacy haven't been established yet through clinical trials, which is the gold standard, but preliminary tests in China have shown encouraging results, and in March, the FDA started to allow doctors in the U.S. to treat some patients with the plasma of those who have recovered from COVID-19.
For the recipients, we are looking for people who are admitted to a hospital, who are showing increasing oxygen requirements, which indicate to us that they're on potentially a downhill course.
Mount Sinai in New York is one of a growing number of hospitals across the country administering convalescent plasma to qualifying COVID-19 patients. Recovered patients interested in donating plasma fill out a survey. Then, to comply with FDA guidelines, clinicians have to put these potential donors through two tests. First, a diagnostic test. They have to make sure they're not still carrying the new coronavirus. And then, an antibody test to ensure they're making enough antibodies to fight the virus off. That second test looks for antibodies in blood plasma. Scientists at Mount Sinai developed an antibody test by starting with a genetic code for the virus. That serves as the blueprint for proteins. Using these instructions, they mass-produce synthetic copies of a protein that the virus has on its surface. Then, they take special plates with dozens of tiny wells and coat the bottom of each one with the synthetic proteins. After that, they put some of the donor plasma into each well. If there are antibodies, these recognize the viral protein and bind to it. The scientists then add an additional antibody, which lights up when it binds to the synthetic viral protein and coronavirus antibody combo. Scientists run this test at different concentrations until it stops lighting up. The more they have to dilute the sample, the more antibodies the person's plasma has. The more antibodies, the better the plasma is for therapy. Scientists do this kind of testing in labs all the time, but to do it clinically, they need to notify regulators. If a potential donor passes the virus and the antibody tests, then Mount Sinai clinicians ask them to go to the New York Blood Center, where they can give enough plasma to administer to patients. Then, there are two other hurdles before that plasma can be given to patients. Making sure it doesn't have any other viruses, like hepatitis or HIV, and the blood types have to match. One donation can likely treat 2 people, according to preliminary estimates. So far, Mount Sinai has treated more than 30 patients. Administering the therapy requires sign-off from the FDA. How will you tell if somebody's getting better because of this treatment?
Well, in about 4 or 5 days, hopefully they'll be recovering more quickly than other people with similar characteristics. We have a team of biostatisticians that are starting to model what happens for patients in our experience in the health system, such as the length of hospital stay, the need for ICU days, the need for ventilator, and of course, mortality and survival are of course, the ultimate.
The treatment is not without risks. Transfusion reactions can include fever, allergic reactions, and even lung injury. And like the swab tests that tell somebody if they have the virus, antibody tests are also in short supply. In the long term, the hope is that they could help mitigate some of the economic effects of the pandemic. So right now I'm talking to you from my apartment. You're in your house in Baltimore, I imagine. Could this kind of testing also help policymakers figure out who is able to go back to work safely?
If we knew who has antibody and they have recovered, you could imagine that those could go work safely. It would require an enormous undertaking to test almost everyone in the country.
The antibody tests also have to be highly accurate, and recently, the accuracy of some tests developed abroad has been called into question. Despite the challenges, scientists are optimistic that plasma therapy could help patients recover faster and give them clues about how deadly the virus really is.
We don't know the denominator. We don't know the number of people that have been infected but did not have disease. And the presence of antibody in their blood will identify that subset. And you need to know that number to know really how lethal this disease is.
Okay. Now, if it was hard for you if it was hard for you to follow the scientific jargon and all of the, testing and proteins and all of that, the one thing that you should remember about everything you heard is that although this form of treatment, it's not a cure, is promising, we don't know exactly how effective it's going to be, although it is promising, it is also only able to treat 1 or 2 people from each donor.
Yep.
Donor. From each donor that recovers, you can only treat 1 or 2 people, which means the Red Cross needs a lot of plasma donations, which brings me to the Red Cross donation drive for people that have recovered from COVID-19. They have a plasma donation page, which we will share with you. If you are one of the people that has recovered from COVID-19, you may qualify to donate plasma for coronavirus patients if you meet specific convalescent plasma and regular blood donation eligibility requirements, but you can't find out unless you go to their page and sign up to donate plasma, because they're going to have to test your blood. They're going to have to do all the stuff you just saw in the video to see if your blood can even be used, if you even have enough antibodies built up in your blood, because you might have antibodies, but just not enough to help treat another person. You might have COVID still in your body, even though you don't feel like you have any more symptoms, which also brings me to an important point. Today, I listened to Governor Burgum's press conference, and I also listened to the governor of Iowa's press conference, whose name I'm blanking on right now, but what both of them said, and both of these are states that are red and that plan on sending people back to work and reopening government soon. And they were both talking about how they can keep workers safe. And what they said is, we are going to continue to keep the same protocols for people that are vulnerable. You want to make sure those people stay home. For people that are high risk, you want to make sure to keep them quarantined and at a safe distance from everyone else. And of course, I want to remind everyone that if you have symptoms, if you feel sick, don't leave your home, stay home from work. What we have learned so far about this virus is that half of the people that get it never find out they had it. Half of the people that have it have such mild symptoms, they're considered super spreaders because they go around shedding virus on everyone, making tons of people sick, but they never really get that sick themselves. How do we prevent those cases from causing outbreaks regardless? And when we know that people who are getting tested now won't get their results for a week or longer in some cases, and people are expected to go back to work unless they have a positive COVID case. Now, I want to read some of the comments from our listeners and viewers. Lexi, I agree with you. I believe this virus is a family unit type of virus. Once one of the members of the family contracts it, it's very likely that the rest of the people in that house will too. And that's something to think about. One of the things that the Israeli health minister suggested that they learned from the coronavirus outbreak there in their country is that they needed to keep old people away from young people. They just didn't mix them. Old people in their own places, younger people in their own places, which includes their kids. Kids stay away. Yes, they go and help provide food, take it to them and stuff like that. Otherwise, they just stay away from each other. They don't see them. The other thing, somebody comments that Cynthia Kreitz Matthias has been in isolation for 30 days and hasn't been off of her property, but she needs to go shopping and eat some Mexican food. And I second that emotion. Luckily, I can make my own Mexican food right here in my home.
Yep.
Mary Huber wants to know if mosquitoes could carry the virus. I don't know the answer to that one.
Neither do I.
I don't know the answer to that, so I cannot answer intelligently. But as we learn more, I will make sure to update you.
I hope not.
I hope not, because that is going to mean a horrible summer.
Mm-hmm.
And Cynthia also comments that, of course, China holds responsibility. Not the Chinese people themselves, but the Communist Party. And isn't it sweet that Hunter Biden is still on the board of the Chinese company paying him big dollars? Ooh. That is something. I'm sure that history will very harshly judge all of those who took advantage of the suffering of the people that contracted this horrible, deadly virus. Patriotic Vegan, I feel so badly for you as I'm reading your comment. She is 70 years old, still working as a home healthcare nurse, and they are running out of masks. She's been using the same one for a whole week and has been hanging it from a hook in her car. That's not right. That is not right, Patriotic Vegan. You should have the PPE necessary to do your job without fear.
Yep.
We should be treating the people that we care about the most, our frontline workers, our essential workers, like we care about their lives and the lives of their families. And that means giving them the adequate tools to do their jobs. Well, folks, that's all I have for you this Friday. I hope that you enjoy your weekend and don't miss my interview. Well, the translation I'm going to do of an interview with a Chinese man on Saturday.
Yeah.
Why are you laughing?
It's Thursday.
Oh, that's right. I'm getting my days confused.
Yeah, my camera's frozen, so.
Oh, well, Saturday we are still going to have that, but we will be bringing you more COVID updates. Happy Friday in advance of Friday. It's almost there. It's almost there.
That's right.
I leave you with this video of a couple that is trying to end their social distancing so they can have some sexy time. And this is how it goes from TikTok.
What's up, babe?
So I was thinking I could come over. We could watch movies.
No, you cannot come over.
Why not? I don't have the corona. Let me come over.
How you know you don't got the corona?
Because I'm not coughing.
That's not the only symptom. Check your temperature.
All right, hold on.
What did it say? What is it?
Hey, let me call you back.
That is not the only symptom. Check your temperature.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, and as we're learning, there are new symptoms that, like, losing your sense of smell or taste that we didn't even know about just weeks ago. So, folks, wash your hands, stay safe. Try to figure out what day you're living in. People like me can't seem to do that very well right now. And may God bless you and have a great evening. You've been listening to 88.1 FM, KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Good night.
Good night, everybody.